Me okay?
Yes.
Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jannavalabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Radha Madhava ki jai Shri Radha Murlidhar ki jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai Jai Gaura Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Dham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all, dear, wonderful, amazing, illustrious devotees, for being here. Thank you, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, for so wonderfully hosting this beautiful Sangha every day. Adi Purush Prabhu, Arjuna Prabhu, the devotees in the temple, thank you for being here. I beg your blessings, as well as all the other devotees here. Thank you, Amrita Kishori, for your tireless service as well to help organize and remind Bhagavat speakers to show up when they're supposed to. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 70th chapter, entitled Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. End of the chapter, verses 45 through 47. Verse 45 has a purport, 46 and 47 don't. Okay. Before we get started, would anybody like to... cannot hear the speakers clearly. Volume is low. Thank you for letting me know. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sometimes Zoom just sort of kind of does that. Put your speaker volume low. Okay. Who wants to just, since we're ending a chapter here, chapter 70, update us on what's going on, what's happening in the Bhagavatam right now? Let's get some of your voices in the room. If we've been paying attention. Ah, Krishna Daya. He's my backup, Krishna Daya, always. He's my pocket Shastra, and he's my backup. Always there. Yes, Prabhu.
So one of the important thing happening in this chapter is a messenger comes from the Magadha province stating that Jarasandha has captivated so many kings. So the kings are requesting Krishna, please come and rescue us. So that is one of the important aspects. They keep glorifying Krishna in beautiful verses and they petition for rescue.
Yeah. Okay, so there's Jarasandha who's captured all these kings, and these kings are petitioning Krishna to come and save them, and then there's these beautiful, beautiful glorifications. Why not, right? Why not take an opportunity to glorify and praise Krishna in such a beautiful way? Awesome. Anything else?
We've entered into hearing about Krishna and his personal form and his relationships with his wives and children.
Beautiful. Thank you, Krishna Kumari. You broke up a little bit there, but we heard Krishna and his beautiful, his relationship with his wives, his children, his devotees. We got to hear a little bit about that. Beautiful. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at this verse. There's a few of them here. Verse 45. Shri Shuka Uvacha Taratish Atma Pakshvesha Grantru Vijigishaya Vacha Peshai Smayam Brityam Udavam Praha Keshava. Shukadev Goswami said when his supporters, the Yadavas, objected to this proposal out of eagerness to defeat Jarasandha, Lord Keshava turned to his servant Uddhava and, smiling, addressed him with fine words. So, what is the proposal that the Yadavas, Krishna supporters, are objecting to? Ananda Bihari, Krishna Daya. Anybody know the proposal that's being objected to?
To go to the sacrifice, Prabhu?
To go to the sacrifice, to go to the Raja Surya, the Yudhishthira's Raja Surya sacrifice. Yes, they're objecting this proposal that Krishna go to the Raja Surya sacrifice. Srila Prabhupada will explain his purport. Thank you, Prabhu. So, Srila Prabhupada explains. So, this must be something from the Krishna book or somewhere. So, as we know, the 10th canto from the 14th chapter onwards, through the rest of the 10th canto, 11th canto, and 12th canto were translated and commented on by Srila Prabhupada's disciples because Srila Prabhupada left this world. So whenever Srila Prabhupada had already translated a verse somewhere else, like if Prabhupada quoted a verse from the 11th canto in a purport to the Bhagavad Gita somewhere, or another place in Bhagavatam, then they would use that translation, or they would sometimes refer to specific places where Prabhupada would comment on a pastime or a section in the Krishna book, and they would bring that in so that as much as possible we were getting Srila Prabhupada's direct translations and commentaries on various sections. So they don't reference it here, but it's likely that this comes from Krishna book, although it could come from somewhere else. They would study Srila Prabhupada's books and pull out wherever Srila Prabhupada would comment on various sections. So they put here, Srila Prabhupada explains, just before the great sage Narada arrived in the Sudharma assembly house of Dwarka, Lord Krishna and his ministers and secretaries had been considering how to attack the kingdom of Jarasandha. Because as Krishnadaya Prabhu so expertly explained to us, that Jarasandha had captured these kings and they were petitioning for Krishna to come and save them, which is a beautiful sentiment that we find throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? In many ways, the Bhagavatam leading up to the 10th canto has various stories there are stories of pure devotees taking shelter of Krishna, and there are stories of people who eventually make their way towards taking shelter of Krishna after they have tried everything else. So you have Dhruva Maharaj, who is a burning desire to heal the wound of shame and rejection and anger from his father. And his initial plan isn't to just hand it all up to Krishna and take shelter of Krishna. His initial plan is, I'm going to take shelter of material energy, and I'm going to get a kingdom greater than my grandfather. And it left him bereft, ultimately, to the point where he found Krishna. Krishna bestowed his grace upon him, and then he was known as this greatest of devotees. Ajamil, who was initially taking shelter of his son, who was named Narayan, and inadvertently called the Vishnu Dutas. You have Gajendra, who was relying on his own strength, ultimately, until he was completely defeated. And in that moment, he threw up a flower, offering it to Krishna, and Vishnu appeared in surrender. And so you have this juxtaposition when you get to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. From the very, very beginning, right? What's the first instance of somebody going to take shelter of Krishna in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam? The first instance that we have. Before Krishna even appeared.
The demigods?
What was that?
The demigods?
The demigods. Yeah, was that Manohar Prabhu?
Haribol.
Haribol. The demigods. Tell me more. What was the instance?
To Krishna or to Vishnu? I think Krishna came into the womb of Devaki and they came to offer their prayers.
But before that, like, what do you mean when you say the demigods petitioning to Krishna?
Earth was overburdened by defense forces.
So the earth was being overburdened, so Mother Bhumi came in the form of a calf or cow to Lord Brahma, and they went to petition to Lord Vishnu.
There you go. The assist goes to Adi Purush Prabhu for that one. Thank you, Manohar. Teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. Yeah, the earth had been overburdened, right? Had been overburdened by problems, overburdened by how do you want to say, exploitative leadership, right? Krishna says in the seventh chapter of Bhagavatam, beautiful, beautiful verse, seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna talks about the 8 material elements that exist: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, right? And he talks about his para and apara prakriti, his lower and inferior natures. The apara prakriti is the material energy, which consists of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, everything throughout the universe, right? But yet there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature, right? We're trying to exploit the resources of this material nature, try to enjoy it on our own, trying to extract some sense. Anandamayo bhyasat. Every living being is searching for pleasure, but because we identify, we have a false sense of identity. We have these 3 elements of false ego, right? The false ego itself, the intelligence, and then the mind, and then the senses. So the false ego is the ahankar, which means it's a sense of I amness, right? We all have this sense, this innate need to identify in some way. Our ultimate identity is Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadasa. We are eternal servants of Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, I'm not a Brahman, I'm not a Vaishnava, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Shudra. I am an eternal servant of Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur, Dasa, 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 Anudas. That Lord of the Gopis, I am the servant of his servant of his servants. Right? But in the absence of that, when we're covered by the material energy, we develop some other warped sense of I amness, right? Bhakti Tirtha Swami, it's like seared in my memory in his final public appearance in 2005 in Gitanagari. At a certain point, he was reaching the final weeks of his life. He didn't know if it was the final days or final moments of his life, and he just said, I'm not giving any more public classes, and I'm just going to go inward, and I'm going to focus on my bhajan to Krishna and my next destination of journeying on to serve Krishna in the spiritual world. And he said in a class, he said, I'm not John Favors, which is the legal name that he was given at birth. I'm not John Favors. I'm not Ganesham Das. I'm not Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I'm not walking around Vrindavan with a danda and orange robes on. None of us are. Like, I have to give up the identity of even being a preacher in this world. We let that go so that I can step into whatever eternal identity Krishna has waiting for us in the spiritual world. So this idea that even in the spiritual world, even here in the material world within our service, we take on certain identities, right? Whether it's the gross physical material identity, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Asian, I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm good looking, I'm ugly, I'm smart, I'm not so smart, I'm boring, I'm popular, I'm successful, I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I'm a senior devotee, I'm a junior devotee, right? I'm a pujari, I'm a preacher, I'm a kirtaniya, right? We develop all these identities and we think and then based on that identity, right? The intelligence comes in and does the work and thinks what we need in order for that identity to be reinforced and happy, right? So I think I'm a successful business person. Therefore, my intelligence will start to discriminate between what's good for you and what's bad for you based on that sense of identity. And then it employs the mind to become attached to that thing and to go get it. And we just, without thinking, it just all happens subconsciously. And we just think, I have a desire to get something. I want something that's good for me. Without recognizing, pulling back the layers, there's a sense of intelligence that is discriminating based on a sense of I amness, right? And when we're engaged in sadhana bhakti, the whole purpose that Srila Prabhupada had given us is to be able to peel back those layers of I amness so that we can wash away cheto dharpana marjanam, wash away all that caked on layers of false ego so that we can allow the genuine self to emerge. Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayur Dasa 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 Anudas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say, right? But as long as we're covered by this sense of material I amness, this ego, right, which we all have, right? Do an exercise after class and just think like, what are all the layers of I amness, a false ego that I think I am? I was just reading somewhere else today that spiritually there are no dead ends, right? Because everything can be used somehow for us to progress closer to Krishna. But materially, it's all dead ends, right? It's all dead ends materially, right? We just get a little frustrated when the dead end comes before the end of life, right? Dead end at some point, for all of us, ends in death. We have to leave this body, right? But sometimes before that time, there's many dead ends. Our business doesn't work out. Our relationship doesn't work out. My health doesn't work out, right? Even my service doesn't work out the way that I thought it was. Whatever it would be, there's always some sort of sense of dead end, right? But spiritually, there are no dead ends. But materially, there's always some sense of dead end. And so what are the layers of false ego, right, that I've employed and built up and allowed to take onto myself, right, that therefore employ my intelligence to discriminate what I think is good for me, that therefore have my mind attached to what I think I need, right? Because then we're exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So we find examples in Bhagavatam of that. Dhruva Maharaj, this elevated devotee, initially was trying to exploit the resources of this material inferior nature. Gajendra, this emblem of surrender, initially trying to exploit the resources of material inferior nature. Ajamil, trying to exploit the resources of this material inferior nature, ultimately took shelter of Narayan, who he thought was initially his son, but the power of the holy name, right? Even Namabas elevated him, right, to this platform of devotion, right? But when we get to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, it's all just immediately take shelter of Krishna. There's no exploitation of these lower material inferior natures. It's just from the get-go, at the beginning, there's issues on the earth, there's this exploitative leadership, there's people who, they're noticing this progression of Kali Yuga. Let us immediately go to Krishna. Let us go to Vishnu on the shore of the milk ocean and pray, please descend and be present with us through this, because we're going to need you, right? And how often do we pray like that? Krishna, I'm going to need you. Krishna, I'm going into the next season of life. I'm going into this big difficulty. I'm going into this challenge. Krishna, I'm going to need you. Right? And therefore we have this, in the very beginning of this same chapter, chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tat Trinu, to Arjuna, right? Yata yasyasi taktrinu, just hear from me. So when we engage in the process of sadhana bhakti, hearing and chanting, what we're trying to do is we're calling Krishna into our life, because we know we need Krishna. We're trying to follow in the footsteps of the Ragatmaka Bhaktas of Vrindavan, who are constantly calling Krishna into their life, right? So, just before, back to Srila Prabhupada's purport of this verse, just before the great sage Narada arrived in the Sudharma assembly house of Dwarka, Lord Krishna's ministers and secretaries had been considering how to attack the kingdom of Jarasandha, right? Because these kings were taking shelter of Krishna, petitioning to Krishna to please come and help them. Because they were very seriously considering the subject, Narad's proposal that Lord Krishna go to Hastinapur for Maharaj Yudhishthira's great Rajasuka sacrifice did not much appeal to them. Krishna, you can't go there. Krishna, you have to come and save us. And this sometimes is required in our prayer, a fervency that Krishna, you promised. Krishna, you can't abandon me. Krishna, you can't abandon your devotees. There was a beautiful drama play last evening at the Bhakti Center with Prema Mani, and Amrita Kishori was there, Vrinda Gopi, and Nandini Radhika played Krishna, and there was and Saraswati was there. There was all directed by Manohar Prabhu. This beautiful play last night where Radharani petitioned Krishna, you must give us you must have 4 agreements you give. And the last one was that any devotee who's taken shelter must be, you must never abandon them, right? So sometimes we got to be a little firm with Krishna. Sometimes we have to be a little sometimes we got to be a little heavy-handed with Krishna, like, Krishna, you promised. Krishna, there's nowhere else that I'm going. Krishna, I'm not going anywhere. What is the last verse What is the last verse of the Shikshastakam? Krishnadaya Prabhu, my backup.
Aslishyava padakatam pinasta. Whether you trample upon me with your lotus feet. Whatever you do, I am your servant unconditionally.
Whatever you do, I'm your servant unconditionally, right? So this idea, like this is the seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna, right? What are the 4 types of people who surrender to Krishna? The pious, there's the people who are searching for wealth, the people who are searching for relief from distress, the people who are just kind of curious and philosophically minded, and those who genuinely want to know the absolute truth, right? And so it's good that we're dovetailing our needs and desires to understand Krishna. But if we don't make the transition at some point, all of us came to spirituality for some reason or other. We were in distress, we were looking for answers, we were lonely, we were feeling disconnected, like whatever it was. But at a certain point in our sadhana, if we don't make the switch from I'm no longer looking to get something out of my devotional service, I just want to be connected to that jewel of Vrindavan, that light of Mother Yashoda's eyes. There's nowhere else for me to go. When we get to that place, right, now we're starting to gain some traction and place ourselves in the shelter of the Ragama Bhaktikas of Vrindavan, right? So and so here you have, it's crazy, right? Krishna is the supreme, all these beautiful prayers, the supreme independent source of everything. And they're like, Krishna, like, no, they're trying to change his mind. They're saying, Krishna, you can't go to the Rajasuriya sacrifice, right? They're saying, no, Krishna, you must petition to save your devotees. And this is why that sometimes Krishna's devotees are more merciful than Krishna even himself, right? Srila Prabhupada petitioned to Krishna to please come and rescue all of us, right? Krishna's like, Prabhupada was petitioning constantly on board Jaladuta when he arrived in the Boston harbor. Krishna, you have to come and speak through my words and manifest in the form of the holy name and change the heart of these very lost and misdirected people. Right? And so, as devotees, we're meant to invoke tremendous compassion on the world. And we develop that compassion by recognizing the way somebody else's compassion has transformed my own life. So when we develop gratitude for the compassion we've received, we can start to become emblems and ambassadors of compassion in the lives of others. So they're saying, no, Krishna, you can't just go and do something else. You have to go and attend to your devotees in distress. So Lord Krishna could understand the intentions of his associates because he is the ruler of even Lord Brahma. Therefore, in order to pacify them, he smilingly spoke to Uddhava. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that the Lord smiled because he was about to demonstrate Uddhava's brilliant ability to give counsel in difficult situations. Whenever we hear about Krishna smiling, there's a particular instance where we also know Krishna smiled. Where else did Krishna give a little smirk or a smile? Krishna Prabhu's got a little smile right now.
Yeah, I mean, like when Kunti Maharani offers prayers.
June on the battlefield.
Arjuna on the battlefield?
Arjuna. Yes.
Thank you, Bhima. Krishna Prabhu, you were saying when Kunti's prayers?
So after all the prayers, Kunti requests that stay back, but Krishna just smiles and then he just leaves.
He's smiling at Kunti. Yeah, thank you for that. I was also thinking, Bhima, of Arjuna on the battlefield, right? Smiling. Like Arjuna is in a puddle of tears. Literally, his skin is burning. His mind is reeling. He put down his bow, which is his very life. And he's like crawled up in a fetal position, crying like a baby and is unable to compose himself. And Krishna just looks at him and smiles. Why? Because he's like, this is the moment I've been waiting for. Krishna's always been there, right? Krishna was Arjuna's friend and cousin their entire life, but it took that many years to get to the place where Krishna felt like he could speak to him, right? So sometimes when it feels like our entire material world is falling apart, Krishna is somewhere smiling because he knows, right? And it's mentioned here in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, that Krishna can understand the intentions of his associates because he's the ruler of even Lord Brahma. Krishna has the whole world in his hands, right? And we as devotees are called to hold our faith and to be surrounded by those who hold faith, that Krishna is looking out for me. Krishna is looking out for us, right? Krishna has not forsaken me. Krishna is smiling because he knows. There's no guarantee. Krishna never promises that everything's going to work out materially, right? But he does promise that I will never abandon my devotees and I will carry them through the biggest difficulties and I will personally escort them back home, back to Godhead, right? That's the prayer. That's the promise that we've been given. So, Krishna has been suggested to go visit the Rajasuya sacrifice, but these kings have come and made their petition, or these representatives of the kings have come and made these petitions to come and save them. And so the Yadavas, Krishna's supporters, are objecting to that proposal, say, Krishna, no, you can't go. You have to come and be here to save your devotees. And Krishna turns to Uddhava to get his counsel. So the last two verses here. The personality of God had said, you are indeed our best eye and closest friend, for you know perfectly the relative value of various kinds of counsel. Therefore, please tell us what should be done in this situation. We trust your judgment and shall do as you say. Right? Shukadeva Goswami continued, thus requested by his master, who, though omniscient, acted as if perplexed. Uddhava took this order upon his head and replied as follows. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 70th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. And so I'm going to wrap this up in a minute or two because I want to open up for some questions and dialogue and discussion. But it's such, we could have spent the whole time talking about this, about Krishna's deference to his own devotees, right? Krishna's deference to his own devotees, and that it's a powerful concept to understand Krishna, especially Krishna in Vrindavan, where Krishna is moved by the heart and prayers of his own devotees, right? And devotion is so fierce and intense, tivrana bhakti, that they actually will stand before Krishna and object when they think he's out of line, right? When they think something else should be done. And Krishna will listen. There's so many beautiful instances, even in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Where did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu initially want to go when he took sannyas? Took sannyas, I'm going to where? Vrindavan, right? He wanted to go to Vrindavan, but where did he end up going and taking his residence? Sorry? Jagannath Puri. Why did he go to Jagannath Puri?
I forget who told him to go.
Who did?
I forget. One of them.
Somebody did.
Somebody told him.
Somebody told them. Who asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go? He said, you can't go to
His
Vrindavan.
mother. His mother.
His mother, Sachi Devi. She said, Jagannath Puri is the next door neighbor, is the backyard, it's right there. I can hear about you. I can get updates from you. If you go to Vrindavan, it's so far, I'll never have any connection, right? She moved the heart of her son, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And so Krishna himself is moved by the hearts and petitions of his devotees. But it has to be, as Rupa Goswami mentioned, Anyabi Lashyadashunyam Jnana Karmadyanavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilaram Bhaktir Uttamam. That this supreme bhakti Uttamam, is Anyabi Lashyadashunyam. It's devoid of any personal motives and ulterior agendas. And the only times we really get frustrated in bhakti is when our own ulterior motives or agendas get exposed. Wow, I actually I actually have been performing some type of karma mishra bhakti, some type of jnana mishra bhakti, some type of bhakti mixed with something else. Yes, I love Krishna and the holy name is beautiful and I love kirtan and I like serving devotees, but I was also expecting a little bit of this, right? And that's okay. That's not a shaming game. I'm there too. But the point is that instead of becoming bitter or frustrated and leaving our devotional service, we should recognize the gift that Krishna is presenting to us to let go of something which is getting in the way of me leveling up in my bhakti. Right? That's the journey that each of us are on, and the gift that each of us are being given is to level up in our devotional service, because Krishna's calling us to be able to enter into this mood that the residents of Vrindavan and Mathura and Dwarka hold, of having such a close, intimate relationship with Krishna, right? And Krishna values his devotees so much that he's willing to listen to them, right? That he's willing to listen to them. And in this case, he wanted to glorify his dear friend Uddhava, who he has already, he will share the Uddhava Gita with in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, I'll stop there, and thank you all so much. I would like to open up questions, even questions or just reflections, sharing, realizations. I would love to hear from devotees to enlighten me and share their reflections on Srimad Bhagavatam. And the floor is open. I see William has a hand raised.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for a wonderful class today. One thing mentioned in class today about Krishna's devotees sometimes have more mercy than Krishna had me a little bit confused, because I may be wrong, but I always thought that he has the most mercy through like Gaurnitai, because he came in the form of Lord Chaitanya, and I also believe that, you know, Krishna puts us to the test to see how much we love him before he moves to action on our behalf.
Yeah.
Please accept my apologies if I'm wrong. I just
Yeah, he's the most merciful. Namo Mahavadannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate, that he is the most merciful. He came in the form of his own devotee, which interestingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the form of a devotee. So in order to be the most merciful, he took the form of a devotee. And even then, in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we find instances where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would demonstrate this principle in order to glorify his devotees. There were times that Mahaprabhu himself would even reject certain devotees. Kal Krishna Das, who left Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's service. And so Mahaprabhu said, let him leave. I'm done with him. But the devotees said, no, we have to re-engage Kal Krishna Das in service somehow or other. And they gave him the service of running to Mayapur Dham to update Mother Sachi herself about the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. King Prataparudra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I'm a sannyasi, I should never meet a king or anybody in any worldly class situation. I will not meet this King Prataparudra, even though he so desperately wanted to meet Mahaprabhu. And so the devotees were the ones who devised some sort of scheme and plan that he would be able to sneak in and get the personal association and the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even when Krishna makes things difficult for devotees, the devotees are the ones who rally around that devotee to reinstate them or put them in the presence of Krishna, right? And because Krishna wants himself to give those devotees credit, just like Krishna could have made a decision. He didn't need Uddhava, but he did need Uddhava, and he asked Uddhava to give counsel. Srila Prabhupada was the one who traveled across the oceans. Prabhupada, of course, we know, was empowered by Krishna, and everything was because he was in the hands of Krishna. So Krishna did everything, and at the same time, it was Srila Prabhupada's personal mercy that petitioned Krishna's blessings into all of our lives.
it's interesting how in the class today you mentioned how sometimes we like, oh come on Krishna,
Come on Krishna,
because I found myself doing that just before a school started for the kids. I'm like, oh come on Krishna, I wanna be able to take the kids to school. Please get me out of bed. I can't stand being in bed. I really need to be out of bed. I need to, and I suffer with a mental health condition. So, you know, that's really something that I've been struggling with almost all my life. Actually,
Yeah.
since my 20s. So I said, hey, Krishna, listen, I promise that I'll continue to do my 16 rounds as I did before. Remember, I did my 16 rounds. I'm having a conversation with him as if he's a real person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, please. And then the following day, what happened? I woke up. I was able to take the kids to school.
Thank you, Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
thank you, Krishna. Yeah.
Beautiful. Siham wrote a question in the chat. It is Ganesh Chaturthi celebration period. Is it okay to pray to Lord Ganesh to remove obstacles that one might be facing in his or her own bhakti? That's a great question. Somebody asked me a similar question a little while ago, and I was reflecting because I was teaching on this section of Bhagavad Gita where Prabhupada, Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita how right, that we're exploiting and under the influence of the material nature, and then dhaivi yashagunamayi mama maya dhrataya, that if one is under the influence of this material energy, they can get out of it by surrendering unto Krishna, right? So he talks about the process of surrendering to Krishna. But then he says if we don't surrender to Krishna, our surrendering propensity goes somewhere else, right? And filters out to demigods or other places where we take shelter, right? We take shelter somewhere, shape, or form. We're always taking shelter somewhere. And so Krishna will decry demigod worship or taking false shelters, etc. So in one sense, you can say no. But at the same time, when we recognize that everyone's a devotee of Krishna, we recognize the hierarchy of Krishna's position as Swayam Bhagavan. We also recognize that the need to take help where help can be given, right? And so if you, why wouldn't we take help where help, Krishna can work through his devotees in really powerful, wonderful ways, right? You know, when we're moving apartments, we may ask a devotee to come and help us. Right? We may ask somebody to come and, hey, could you help me move my apartment? And it's like, imagine if you're like, no, I'm never asking anybody for help ever again because I only depend on Krishna, right? No, Krishna works through his devotees and we can ask devotees to help us, right? So Ganesh is a powerful servant of Krishna. And we petition his help in order to assist us in our bhakti. It could be a powerful partnership. But we should remember that ultimately Krishna is the one who's bestowing all of that. Krishna is the one Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also mentions it is I am the giver of heat and I withhold the rain, and I am the one who provides for the sacrifice of any other worship that's taking place. So we shouldn't worship other demigods, right? But we can sometimes petition for the help of devotees in order to assist us in our bhakti. Right.
Thank you, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, are you a devotee or a demigod? What category should we petition you in?
I'm a dacoit, Prabhu. You know full well what I am. I did have something to say in regards to William's statement. I prayed to Krishna as if he was a real person. And
Yeah.
of course, that's like he's being pejorative there. He's being humble. And that's the thing that that we have to come to understand, that not only is he a real person, but that he's within us. He knows our every thought. Dayal, you mentioned Krishna says, "I am the sun and the moon." The list of qualities that Krishna is: omnipresent, omnipotent, but he's also the giver of remembrance and forgetfulness. So even though we do not think that Krishna is our order supplier, he supplies our desire if we choose to forget him, which we must do in order to engage in outward pleasure seeking. But if we choose to remember him, or at least that one prayer, do whatever it is you need to do to me, trample me, whatever you do, just don't let me forget you. You know, I might be a rascal, I might be a dacoit. It's my nature, it's my conditioning, but I know that you're present within me. You know my every thought. You know what I'm going to do. So bring it on. Let's do it. And so Krishna is that real person who's right there next to you. And in regards to going to Ganesh, et cetera, these are external signposts, but Krishna gives the map within the heart and the instructions of the Guru and Shastra. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Bhima Prabhu. Dayal Gauranga Prabhu, so what is Krishna's... Oh, darshan time, darshan time. Okay, dear devotees, let's thank Dayal Gauranga for the class and put on our best look, turn on our cameras, and be seen by the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Krishna's cracky this morning.
Shri Radha Murida Gocha Bhagavan Ki. Bhagavatam Samadhita Sundaranga Ganga Koti Kamaniya Shubha Govinda Hari Krishna Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Krishna Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Hari Krishna Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Sakale Yaveti Hanti Pasyanti Manti Payanti Shriram Jaganti Ananati Maya Sadhu Asya Govinda Hari Krishna Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govinda Hari Shri Shri Radha Muridhara Gaura Chandra Nisima Bhagavana Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki. The lotus feet.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Dayal Gauranga Prabhu, you have a few minutes for the afterglow?
I have 1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. Okay, dear devotees, any burning questions? Burning questions? If not, I'll ask my question.
Ask your question, Prabhu.
Okay, so Dayal Gauranga Prabhu, what is Krishna's promise? If it's not that everything will work out materially, so what is it then? And when something comes up in our life, knowing that things will work out materially is not what Krishna promised. So what should we strive for materially? Should we go like, oh, to hell with paying bills, to hell with marriage? It's not Krishna's promise anyway. So what should be our mentality in regards to material things, if any?
Yeah. Well, there's two questions there. One, what is Krishna's promise? And two is what should be our relationship towards like material endeavors? You know Krishna's promise better than me. And so Krishna says in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 31, I'm reading here, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma sashvak chantim nigachati konteya pratijanati name bhakta pranashyati. That declare boldly, but my devotee will never perish, right? Which is an interesting promise to make, right? Because we know that the nature of the material world is that everything perishes. So what is Krishna referring to there? He can't be referring to anything material, right? He's referring to his devotees ultimately being delivered to his lotus feet. So Krishna's promise is that I will pull you close. And we know that Prabhupada would even remember this verse when everything in his life materially started falling apart before he came to America, that when Krishna specifically favors certain devotees, he takes everything away, right? But that's only reserved for very, very special few devotees because it's intense. But that's Krishna's promise, is that he will always never leave his devotees. He's always there with us. But in terms of our material endeavors, what I found so interesting about these verses that we were reading in relation to Uddhava is that at the same time Krishna wants us to be our own people, right? And so the Yadavas and Uddhava themselves, they all had their own personalities that Krishna deferred to. And there's two verses in the Gita that are repeated twice. One is Man Mana Bhava Mad Bhakto, to worship me, be my devotee, etc. And the other is to not follow another's path, but to live our own swadharma, right? That Krishna's given us. So materially, we have a certain psychophysical nature, and there's a certain way in which we are supposed to, that Krishna's placed us in this world, right? Krishna's placed us in this world in a particular way, and we can have strong material pursuits to whatever degree that desire may be in our heart, but we should know that if we're not coupling that pursuit with our bhakti, we can easily get carried away. But everything can be used in Krishna service, right? And so I think it's just a matter of how we prioritize what we're doing in our life. Because sometimes, yeah, you can use wealth, you can use fame, you can use so many things in Krishna service, but if we don't have the strong spiritual foundation to understand that we are just the stewards of the things that Krishna gives us, then we'll get carried away and we'll just end up in the category that Krishna mentioned in the 7th chapter. We're just trying to exploit the resources of material nature, right? So sometimes Krishna will call us to just take everything away, and sometimes Krishna will give us everything. Maharaj Priyavrata in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, he was retired, he had taken sannyas, he wanted nothing to do with it, and Krishna called him out and said, you're going to be the emperor of the entire universe, or the entire planet. And he put him into a position of being the king and being with royal opulence and everything. So sometimes Krishna gives us everything and we have to step up for our service. But if we're not grounded in our bhakti, then we're going to get bewildered by it. So go forth and be prosperous, my dear Nanda Bihari Prabhu. But make sure that you keep good association and make sure that you keep strong connection to your sadhana so that you can understand how to manage that prosperity in a way that it doesn't take you away from Krishna.
Thank you, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have to leave, but please may the conversation continue. Thank you all so much for your love, for your care, for your patience, for your tolerance. Please forgive me. I do accept feedbacks, criticisms, and means of improvement. So please feel free to message me. Maybe just message me through Ananda Bihari so that it doesn't bruise me too much. 'Cause he always delivers the message very softly and sweetly. But please, if there's a way that I can serve better, please do let me know. Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dayal Gauranga Prabhu. What an exemplary Vaishnava Dayal Gauranga Prabhu is.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Bhima Prabhu, I see you've been burning to glorify Krishna. You wanted to say something?
I've been burning to denigrate you, Prabhu.
I know.
As a married man, as a fellow to commiserate.
Fellow who?
What's that?
Fellow who? I'm not a poet. I'm not a farmer. Not even.
Yeah. But you are a soldier, Prabhu, and
I am a soldier.
you are a soldier, and a married man. There's no stronger soldier, no more courageous soldier than a married man with children and young child. So, just to quote from poetry, the charge of the Light Brigade. This was sung out by the men during trench warfare, where they breached the trench and ran into machine gun fire. And they were told, yours is not to reason why, yours is but to do and die. So that's the same message that Krishna gave to Arjuna on the battlefield. Stop trying to reason your way off this battlefield. You're in battle. You're a Kshatriya. You're a soldier. Stop using your mind. Go fight, whether you live or die. Do it for me.
Nice.
So I'm right by your side, brother. But
Yeah.
actually, I'm gonna stay back and cook the victuals. So if you do make it back alive, I'll have something for you. Otherwise, there'll be twice as much for me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. You always have some encouraging things to say. Thank you. Okay, dear devotees, how did you like the class? We're all perishable, but what will never perish is our devotion. Krishna is always there for us. He never walks away. If we focus on our sadhana and set our priorities right, we can even use some fame and what was it, wealth and fame in Krishna's service. Why not? Adipurusha Prabhu, are you ready to use fame and wealth in Krishna's service? You ready to blow it all out the window into Krishna's arms? All your fame and wealth? Or else your wife will do it. So it's either way you go, it'll all be used. So why not preemptively give it to Krishna? Oh, look at Narottam Nitai. Narottam Nitai is back. Welcome back, Prabhu. Good to see you. He's fixing his hair for Krishna. Yeah. His hair is standing on end.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I was reflecting on a class given by Jai Jagannath Prabhu some time ago and here in Michigan, and he talked about how like turning our senses inward, and like horses are like they're like as if the horses of the senses are actually turning inwards and then running into our hearts, and I was reflecting on that, as well as like I guess you could say Mahaprabhu's like Antya Leela, so to speak, in Jagannath Puri, how like I mean, not to compare, but like in the sense of to really like go inwards and and dig deep in Krishna consciousness. My words are just not getting to me today, but yeah, just putting our intentions inward and offering our intentions that we have to Krishna in that way. So even if you don't actually physically give everything to Krishna, at least the intention is there. So I just
Thank you. Wow, such a valuable contribution, Narottam Nitai. Thank you. Yeah,
I
when
think
things
what he
get
said, Prabhu, to sum it up in a statement, let the horses run in your heart. Let the
horses,
horses run in your heart.
horse,
So
inward.
if you have passion, if you have yearning, if you have intensity, turn it inward towards Krishna, who's a real person.
Yeah, exactly. I liked how you said it. Pray like Krishna is a real person. Treat devotees around you like Krishna is a real person. Push your wheelbarrow like Krishna is a real person. Drive your car like Krishna is a real person. That's such a valuable mantra. So nicely put, Bhima Prabhu. You're Kaviraj for a reason. He's pushing his wheelbarrow like Krishna is a real person. Yeah. Yeah. He's which man? Okay. All right. Adipusha Prabhu, can you please finish it off with something wonderful like Krishna?
Hare Krishna. Well, it's such an extraordinary class. He said everything, but just a reflection. He was talking about the essential essential identity. And before I came to Krishna consciousness, right before then, I was living on an island by myself. And I was.
Did you break any principles there?
No. I was beginning to chant, and I read in one of Prabhupada's books there, the Regulative Principles. I never heard them before. I was 26, my buddy was 26 years old. But the point was, I was doing this Buddhist meditation, and they give you this mantra, who am I? And you sit there cross-legged and sitting up straight and breathing, and you're just chanting, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And when I was a kid, I went to Catholic school, and they have a thing called a catechism. You know what a catechism is?
I've heard the word, but I don't know what that
It's a
is.
little book, and you're supposed to memorize it, like in first grade when you're 6 or 7 years old. And it's a series of questions and answers, and you memorize the questions and answers. And so, this was like 20 years after I'd memorized the catechism. You learn to recite it. And I was just chanting, who am I? And I remembered that the first question in the catechism is, who am I? It just came up, after under all the, all the crap I learned in high school. It's a wonder I can think at all. You ever hear that? We take in so much clutter in our mind, and it's like a pile of debris on top of our real identity. So I was just chanting, who am I? Who am I? And then I remembered that question in the catechism, who am I? And essentially, the answer to that question is, who am I? And then you say, I'm a child of God. And it says, why did God, what's your relationship with God? I'm a child of God. And it says that God, my essential relationship is I'm here to know, love, and serve the Lord in this world and to be with him in the next. And
And
what?
God is a child too.
Okay, well, you have your own catechism. I'm just trying to tell you what the catechism says and how Krishna helped him remember, who am I and why am I here? I'm here to know, love, and serve the Lord in this world and be with him in the next, And I wasn't like a, erudite theologian, and it wasn't on the highest level of being a PhD or anything. I was just a grade school 6, 7-year-old kid. But the truth of our real identity is there and very simple to understand, even for a person who's not very highly developed in their, intelligence. But it was so beautiful. And then I started reading Prabhupada's books and chanting and everything. I'm here to know, love, and serve the Lord in this world and to be with him in the next. And so even in the other traditions, there's the truth about our identity and our purpose, and it doesn't have to be too complicated. Anyway, just something to share. Just what I prayed to Prabhupada what to share, and that came up. So maybe
Thank you,
that
Adi
could
Purush Prabhu.
contribute to
Thanks.
the class. We're here to know, love, and serve the Lord in this world, and to be with Him in the next. Okay, well, go to Prabhupada. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. Who am I is the question that's in the Bhagavatam, right? Atata Brahma Jigyasa, the first question. Inquire about the absolute truth, which is essentially, who am I?
Go Brahma Jignasya, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What the first Vedic aphorism is what is it? What's the translation of that? It's hard for me to talk because the angel's talking. I'm trying to think. Atata Brahma Jignasa means in the human form of life, it's appropriate to inquire. Angel is instructing me to do something right now. I have to go worship Prabhupada.
Okay, all glories to Angel Prabhu. All right, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting like Krishna is a real person. Thank you for being here. Like Krishna is a real person. All right. Bhima Prabhu, kiss him, kiss him. He wants a kiss. Pull him down and kiss him. Yeah. Good.